I'm sorry, sure.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Get started on time. We got a lot to cover today. All right. Actually, before we do get started, one thing that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention that Mike actually shared with me is that a Fieldstone is making a few changes to their routing, which will be. I mean, I guess it'll be kind of up to us to decide what we want to do still, but they're going to be. Oh, Mike, you want to kind of just go over it really quick? Or?
Yeah, I got an email from Gordon over there. Basically, the back nine is the only thing that's changed. And the 17th hole, if you can remember, is a par 3. Mm-hmm. That is, they're going to start out the back nine at number 17 as number 10. Yeah, good. And then you will play the old number 18 as number 11. And the old number 10, which, you know, they teed off and there's a lot of crap both ways. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the new number 11. Huh? So, no, 12. And our most fun, or the hole we have the most fun on will be 13 now. So that'll coincide with the number 13. And number 11 is going to be 13.
I haven't signed up out there yet. I'm thinking about it.
Want me to send you an email?
No, I'm usually on 8.
I know. Yeah. 8 did not change.
Yeah, so
sitting there hoping it did.
So it'll be interesting to see, but I think for the normal play, I mean that's definitely good. We'll encourage faster play and get people off started. Starting on a par 3 is challenging, so we'll either have to move that tee up or maybe continue starting on number 10, that old number 10. But that'll be us. That will be for us to decide once we get to that point. So.
Par 3 slope.
But okay, so rule 28 really quickly. We've pretty much covered this in our other rules between you know, all the questions and everything. But ball unplayable or unplayable ball rule. So we've got 3 options under an unplayable, right? The player can deem their ball unplayable at any part of the course except for a water hazard. So that's a key exception there. So if it's in a water hazard, we're not taking an unplayable. They can take relief under the water hazard rule 26. But if their ball is outside of the water hazard, they can deem their ball unplayable at any point on the course. So as a penalty stroke, as we all know, and we can go back to where we last played from, 2 club lengths from where the ball was, no closer to the hole, or the point where the ball was and the flag on that line back as far back as we want. And dropping on that line. So those are our 3 options under unplayable, all 1-stroke penalty. Pretty straightforward. I'm sure you know, everyone here knows that or has done that with the player. All right. Now when Jean did her rules talk on bunkers, we talked about this as well. So when the ball is in the bunker, if you're going to be taking your 2 club lengths or going back on the line, back with the flag and the ball where it was, you have to stay in the bunker, right? And that doesn't stop you from going back to where you last played from outside the bunker, so you can always do that option. Okay, so when proceeding under the unplayable rule, the player may lift and clean his ball or substitute a ball. And the penalty statement under this rule: match play, loss of hole, stroke play 2 strokes. Again, but if we're taking an unplayable, it's just 1-stroke penalty. Okay. Key decisions here for this one. Any questions? Rule 28, pretty simple. Okay.
Just go back now.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
All right, so another short one. Cleaning the ball. All right. So a ball can be cleaned. A ball that's not on the putting green may be, sorry, a ball on the putting green may be clean when lifted. We talked about that in Rule 16-1B. Elsewhere, the ball may be cleaned except in 5 circumstances. All right, so the 3 main ones are listed in the rule under Rule 21. So if it's determined that it's unfit for play, we can lift it, but we cannot clean it to try to identify it. Now, we did talk about that one situation where if the ball is completely covered in mud or is not identifiable, we can clean it enough to identify it. All right, but generally speaking, we can't clean that ball. And then the last one, we can move the ball or lift the ball, but we can't clean it when it's assisting or interfering with play, which we'll cover in a little bit here. Now, does anyone know what the other 2 situations are where we cannot clean a ball?
When it's interfering with play and you ask them to lift it, you can't clean it.
Right, yep.
That's
They said it
That sounds, that is correct though, yep, Jim?
If it's, how is that, if it's, to see if it's in a hole of a burrowing animal.
Correct.
I mean, this used to be my favorite rule. It was short, it was simple, you couldn't misunderstand it.
All right,
And then I learned that there are 2 more exceptions. One of them is burrowing, and the other is to see if it's an immovable obstruction, is that right?
no, close. To see if it's embedded, right, Craig? Yep. So yep. So those are the other 2. To see if it's in a burrowing animal hole, you can lift it, but you can't clean it, and then also to see if the ball is embedded. And the decision that talks about that is 20-1/0.7.
Page 317.
Yeah, page 317. Yeah, Mike.
Can we go back real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I had the question. Just on it. Page 456, 28-11. There's a couple questions I have. Number one is they say you can drop the ball on the putting if it's lodged in the tree instead of placing it. Now, this came up before about the greens being real fast. You drop the ball, it goes all the way down the hill 150 yards away.
Right.
So
So
equity, that doesn't seem too fair to me, number one.
sure. So if you drop the ball on the putting green, which you can, if it hits on the putting green, it can't roll off the putting green, and you play it, right? Because that's one of the requirements for redropping. So if it hits on the putting green and rolls off, we have to redrop. Or if it hits off the putting green and rolls onto the putting green, we have to redrop. So in that case, if you drop it, it first strikes in the putting green, it has to stay on the putting green and not roll more than 2 club lengths for it to be a good drop.
Pardon me.
Oh,
Sorry to interrupt you. Whoever owns this Honda right in this first spot right here, we're installing some overhead lights. Where you could move over a couple spots.
I mean, in the perpendicular spots here.
Yeah, this gray one right here.
Who's this car? Who's?
That's not.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it might be Ted's.
I've got the one.
I'll,
that's back here.
is it a Honda Civic?
No, that's fine. This is the only one.
Yeah, it's
really-
looks like a little Civic.
Right, let me.
Yeah,
No, I think it's one of ours. Hold on.
Actually, I think I saw the people, there were 4
I
or
thought
5
that-
people
I
in
saw-
the car when it pulled in there, they all walked down the hall.
No, I saw Ted walk this way.
Comes to rest there. And then subsequently a breeze comes up or something, then moves it. You gotta play it.
Play from the new spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could roll off the green at that point. We have to play it.
I don't.
What are you all looking at me for?
Everything, you know.
It's 1 of 4 times. It's 1 of 4 times you can drop a ball on the green. If the ball is unplayable in the tree and the branch is hanging over, you're gonna, because this rule says you have to drop within 2 club lengths. So if you can get to the green, you can drop on the green. Now, if it does, as Kyle said, any of those redrop things, you have to redrop.
But I'm just saying, once you did drop.
And
it
it's
came
come to rest. Now if it rolls, yeah.
I texted- yeah, I just texted him.
If
You
it
you
rolls
should know
on
what
the green,
you should know what one of the others is, because it's very common.
Lateral water hazard.
Lateral water hazard. If you can get 2 club lengths and get to the green and not get closer to the hole, yeah.
Okay, the ball can roll out of the putting, it can roll out of the putting green. I don't see where it says it can't roll off.
It's one of the things in 20.
Doesn't say
Number
roll off, it says roll on,
Yeah, roll on.
yeah.
rolls off. Number 3 rolls onto and comes to rest on the putting green. Or are you saying rolls off?
Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
roll
it
off,
doesn't
so
say
it can't
roll, it can roll off,
You can't roll off.
It can. Okay.
But you still can't roll more than 2 club lengths.
Right. Okay.
right.
So
That's
yeah, we need to.
it.
Yeah. Thanks for. So yeah. So it can roll off the putting green if it hits on the putting green,
You just can't roll more than 2 club
but it can't roll more than 2 club lengths from where it hits.
Right. But he said,
Yeah. Down the hill.
yeah, I know.
All right. Good question. All right, so if the player does clean their ball and they're not allowed to, it's going to be a 1-stroke penalty, and they need to they need to replace the ball. If they don't, they're going to get the general penalty under this rule, but they're going to get the general penalty from playing from the wrong place, but there's going to be no additional penalty for cleaning the ball. So that would be a situation where we have our 2 + 1 = 2.
Where this comes into play occasionally is a guy thinking he's on the green when he's on the fringe. And he lifts his ball and cleans it. And he only gets 1 for lifting his ball in play under Rule 18. He does not get an additional penalty for this because this rule says you can clean your ball anytime it's lifted except in these 5 circumstances. And that is not one of these 5. So he doesn't get the cleaning penalty.
Yeah, the rule is if you lift your ball when the rules don't permit it, go ahead and clean it. It ain't gonna cost you anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Won't cost you anymore.
It's included in the price.
Quantity discount, quantity discount.
All right, a couple of key decisions here in 21, 21/2 and 21/4. Any questions about cleaning the ball? All right, so Rule 22, ball assisting or interfering with play. So we just talked about how this is one rule where we cannot clean the ball when it's lifted. So we'll talk about the recommended procedure on how to do this, or what is the best way to do it and not have a possible penalty situation. So when the ball is assisting play, aka might be serving as a backstop for a chip shot or something like that. So except when the ball is in motion, if a player considers that a ball might assist any other player, he may lift the ball if it's his ball, or have any other ball lifted. All right, so this is just, any person can request this for any ball. Doesn't matter if it's his or hers or whatever. If this player considers that it might assist someone's play, then they can either lift it if it's their ball or ask that it be lifted. Okay, so this ball will obviously be be replaced when it's lifted, and we can't clean it unless it's on the putting green. So the way that's kind of recommended, so just to guys to give you a situation, you may have two balls in a bunker that are very close to each other, and you're going to have to move one to, for the other guy to play. So the recommended way to do it is to have this player grab the ball with two fingers, pick it up, and then put it down off to the side, have the other person play, pick it up again, and then put it back. In that bunker situation, we're going to probably have to recreate the lie, but the best thing to do is to get it out of the player's hands, because if we maybe throw the ball to a caddy, there's a decision in there that could be justified as cleaning the ball potentially, or if it goes in your pocket, you could be deemed to clean it if you do that. So the best way to do this is just to pick it up with two fingers, put it down off to the side, and then just make sure you put it back. That way, we can be 100% positive that the ball was not clean.
Just a question.
Sure.
Picking the ball up, setting it down, couldn't clean it. I've been always under the impression that I pick the ball up and I hold it like this, and I don't move my fingers or my hands. And when it's time to play, I put it back down just the way I did. That way it doesn't get.
Right. Yeah. No.
Is there a preference, or am I wrong?
No. I think that you would be perfectly fine in doing that. I mean,
This is the preferred way. Everybody can see it. There's no question. It hasn't cleaned it. Put it down, and you've got a question, and if there's a real question,
That's
it'll
the way
be
I know.
decided against you.
Yeah, how you pick it up.
There is
The
no
other hand,
preference.
It's the middle of July, it's a Friday, you set it down on Friday.
So,
The rules don't differentiate between methods. Either one is okay.
As long as you're not cleaning the ball.
Yeah. And you don't have to put it down exactly the way you lifted it. You can rotate it.
You can, that's right, you can.
You horizontally, really?
Yes.
So you put the mud in front.
Yeah, if there's a big clump of mud on it, you can turn the ball so that your club won't hit that. Yeah,
But
Yep.
this is the rules of golfing, but you can't put that little clump of mud underneath.
you can't tee it up on the mud, no.
But you can turn it any other
Yeah.
orientation.
That's only if you are allowed to take it off.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
yep. No, that's good. All right, and then if it's determined that competitors have agreed to not lift the ball, that might assist play, so they're going out there and they make an arrangement. Hey, I'm not very good at chipping. Can you leave that there? I might hit it, and they're okay with that, and then they're going to be disqualified. Yep. All right, when another ball is in motion, a ball that might influence the movement of the ball in motion must not be lifted. So if the ball is already in motion, if it could influence the movement, that ball needs to be kept in place, even if it might assist that player. All right, so interfering is a little bit different than assisting. So interfering, if a player considers that the other ball might interfere with his play, he may have it lifted. So this one, it's the player that's deciding if another ball might assist his play. You can't make a judgment about someone else's play. It's only in reference to your play. And then also on the flip side, if you think that your ball might interfere with someone else's play, it's not your responsibility to have it lifted. That's on the player who's playing to decide. So again, just like the last rule, when it's lifted, we're gonna replace it, and it can't be cleaned unless it's on the putting green. We're gonna go through the same procedure, either holding it with two fingers or putting it down off to the side, whatever one you prefer. But again, it just can't be cleaned. In stroke play, this is actually recommended, but if you have two balls that are kind of interfering with each other, if the person that's closer to the hole can play first, to avoid interference from the other person, then have them do that, because it will obviously create a situation where we don't have to determine whether the ball was clean or not, or anything like that. It's just easier if the person the person's ball that's in the way can just play and avoid interference altogether. It's just way better that we do that. So that's always the first thing that you want to ask the players if they ask you, well, could you play first? Not if it's match play, obviously it's different because order of play is more important than match play. But stroke play, we should always ask the other person, could you play first and avoid interference altogether?
Can they do that in match?
I would think
Sure,
this
sure.
rule says you
I don't
can do
think,
it.
I don't think you can in match.
No, he didn't say you could.
Didn't say you couldn't, yeah.
No, you don't want to do it in match
Yeah,
play.
because they could just recall the stroke.
They could just
right?
recall
Yeah,
if
you
you
just
had the
recall
shot of
the
your
stroke.
career, sure.
For the other guys, and
Well, no, but you can't agree to play out of turn.
You can't, yeah. That's what I was asking. You
Yeah.
can't. That's making the
Whoa,
agreement.
hold it.
You and I are playing, your ball is interfering. So I say, would you pick your ball up? You say, no, I want to play first. This rule says you can do that.
No,
No.
no.
How does it not say that?
How does it say that?
Oh, I got it.
It's stroke play.
That's
The little words that'll get you.
I thought you could do that. I thought if you.
Actually, I think you're agreeing to circumvent a rule.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, but you could,
if you just did it and you didn't ask and they didn't recall it,
Then you're fine.
Then it'd be okay. But if you said, hey, I'm going to play first, are you okay with that? And then we got an issue.
Yeah.
and your opponent says, yes, you can.
Right.
Does he still have the right to recall a shot?
No,
Sure.
Well,
Why wouldn't he?
Because he gave me permission.
I don't, does this rule say anything about permission?
No.
You're all adding a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, you're right, but that's what I thought. If you,
I would say if that would happen based on Rule 10, I mean, both players would be disqualified.
Right. They agreed to circumvent a rule.
But, in match play, the players can allow a player to play out of turn.
that's,
Because they just don't
He's waived his
recall it.
right to recall.
Hmm?
I think there's a decision in there that cites that. It was, if you allow a player to play out of turn, you're waiving your right to recall the shot.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
that's what I
I
thought, but
Let's look at
I'm not-
honor.
That's why I'm asking.
Honor, what's that?
That's-
Order of play.
Two players.
Match player.
10, Rule 10.
Players got to go back and get something off the previous putting green or something. He can allow the other player to tee off first. Just so play.
Yeah, so you can,
But not match.
In match play, yeah, that's in match play too.
So Craig, that situation's covered under 10(1)(c)(3). So that one's okay at the same time.
Yeah, we know that.
So 10(1)(c)(2), it looks covers what we're talking about.
wouldn't that be the same if you said this ball is interfering, if you gave him permission to play to save time? That would be the same thing. So you wouldn't have the right to recall after that, I would think. Once you've waived it because you said, yeah, okay, let's keep on moving.
Yeah, 10(1)(c)(2). Only gives us the right to recall the stroke. And it's talking directly about Rule 22(2). Yeah, and then the next one says, I'm closer, but I say, is it okay if I play first? The other guy says, yes, that's fine.
Where?
10(1)(c)(3).
C/3.
What is the
150?
says 22(2)?
Yeah,
22(1).
and the person that gave permission waives the right to then say that, to recall the stroke. A, lose the whole for breach
Hmm.
of rule 22-2. Look at the next one, 1C3.
You got permission, but don't ever do it again.
Well, I don't think that decision implies that there was permission. I think he just does it, right?
That's what it sounds like.
And then they're saying that the player could have the stroke recalled.
10-1C2 does.
So it's probably in Rule 2 where we want to look, right?
Rule 10-1C governs. That's that. 10-1C governs. 10-1C2.
In 10-1C3, in the answer, it says, when done solely for the purpose of saving time, a player whose turn it is to play may invite his opponent to play first. The opponent is under no obligation to accept the offer to play first, but if he does so, the player waived his right under Rule 10-1C to recall the stroke played out of turn.
Yeah.
But it says only to save time do you do this. Solely. You don't do it for any other reason. Ask him to play first. That's what I'm reading there.
We could say it saves
Why
time
would
to
you do
mark
it
the ball.
in the first place?
Save time.
That would be the
Funny.
only reason if somebody's left a club somewhere. But if you're 2 yards in front of me and we're on the same line, and I say, you want to play first, Lynn? I mean, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. Just show me the line and,
Yeah,
or,
because I don't want to go through the procedure of picking up the ball and
and I'm
holding
going
it.
to watch what club you hit and all that and gain all that. You'd be crazy to do that.
If it's
Yeah,
170 yards, who cares?
Yeah,
I mean,
gonna
Well,
say,
Well, yeah, get all that information.
Yeah, but they don't
about-
write the rules for different shots, like
No.
whether it's a 20-yard putt or a 170-yard shot. I
if
don't
there's like
think.
a 20-mile-an-hour wind or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, there's a reason why the ball that's away is played first, and that's to determine your strategy. Because what I do with my shot depends on whether you put it stiff or in the water.
But the question.
But the rule says you don't have to play it.
Play first.
yeah, but
Hmm?
The question though, isn't the question, but can you waive your right?
yeah, that's what I.
I don't see anywhere where the rule says you may waive your right to do
Because
this.
it's exactly what you're saying. The advantage is all in the player.
Being able to observe what happened and adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
That's the advantage.
But I mean, here, if we were to go otherwise, then we'd be saying that two people are agreeing to waive a rule and they're both getting a free trip to the Dairy Queen. And that seems nuclear for the little infraction that's gone on.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just a matter of time. I don't want to, if I'm away and I might interfere, I can say, yeah, you go ahead and play in match play. It seems like,
Break that line.
yeah,
It's, another guy hits him, interferes with your line.
but that, I guess I always assumed that,
It's your job to control order play anyway, so you won't allow that.
So, well,
Make the player who's away play.
question, I think, I misspoke when I said that they'd be disqualified, because that's under stroke play.
Right.
So match play,
No.
what happens in that
You can
case?
either recall the shot or you've given the guy permission to play and play on.
So,
But
okay.
Call the rover.
by the time you got them, you've held up there.
So then, I mean, are they okay to do that?
Genie on
Yes.
speed.
Is there-
Well, reading this, if a competitor plays out of turn, there's no penalty and the ball is played as it lies. If, however, the committee determines that competitors have agreed to play out of turn to give one of them an advantage, they are disqualified.
Was that?
But that's under stroke play though.
Is that under stroke play?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have something on. Oh, okay,
And move those notes around.
yeah.
Well, we'll
I don't see anything.
we'll look into that one.
Yeah.
And, I'll get back to you guys on that one. 'cause
Good
that's-
discussion.
That's, it is a good discussion, for sure.
What if
the guy sinks the shot? And then,
Balls are 150 yards away. One
yeah,
Yeah,
looking for a ball.
does he recall it then?
And the other guy
not if you
right
gave him
there.
permission. That
Well,
was,
He was waiting, you know, he was undecided which club he's going to hit. You're ready to go ahead. Yeah,
It's
like
way
you're both
past.
176, 100.
That just defeats the whole purpose of match play.
Right.
Yeah,
It ruins the strategy, so I can't see these rules giving anybody permission to do that.
Right. Well, there could also be an advantage too of
well, yeah,
going first, because if a player wants to put pressure on the player, hits it to 10 feet. I mean, you know, there's
Yeah,
an advantage to going first sometimes too.
but it also gets into the,
Honors gives you first on the tee.
Right. Yep.
it also gets into the issue of exactly deciding which ball is away then. You know, I mean, if you really, I think, but, you know, now which one of us is away? You know, you're standing there and you're saying, yeah, I think you're a little closer. You either got to verify it, because if, you know, the issue is you must know that, you know, which one's away before you can say, yeah, you go ahead and play.
Right.
I mean, then obviously somebody's got to laser every shot or, you know, do something to determine which one's away. But me and my opponent agree that, okay, go ahead and play. You know, whether it's, you know, you're 50 yards apart in the fairway and you decide you're away and play, and then you come back and determine that, you know, well, I pulled my laser out and no, I was away. I recall your shot. I gave him permission to do that for.
But think about it. If your rule we looked at says that if I leave a club on the green.
You can give some.
And we're in match play, I can tell my opponent to go ahead and get it.
Right.
And you know what? What if I intentionally leave the club there because I'm honors, but it's a 150-yard par three, and you know what? If he knocks it in the water,
I got
got
it.
the advantage.
I
mean, it's how far do you carry this, and what do we, you know? And match play is all strategy. That we all agree.
Absolutely.
So, you know, stroke play, you know, I mean, if you're so.
Yeah. We'll look into that. Next week we're actually going to be covering match play, so that'll be great to talk about that. And I think our answer is going to be somewhere in Rule 2, would be my guess. But all right, so short rules, right? All right, so
Speculation is never.
back to ball interfering with play. Note 1, except on the putting green, a player may not lift his ball slowly because he considers that it might interfere with the play of another player. If a player lifts his ball without being asked to do so, he's going to incur a penalty stroke for a breach of Rule 18-2, moving his ball at rest. But there's no additional penalty under Rule 22. So again, that's just going to say that a player can't say that his ball might interfere with someone else's play. It's only the person's that's playing the shot that can determine if the ball is interfering with his play. When a ball is in motion, another ball is in motion, a ball that might influence the movement of the ball in motion must not be lifted.
But if the player lifts the ball while the ball's in motion, the line is under 22 and not 18. So you're interfering with play. You said if you lift your ball under 22-2.
No, on 18, you're allowed to lift your ball if it's on the green.
Right. Well, no, it doesn't say that.
Yeah, this wouldn't be on the green.
It could be anywhere. Except on the putting green.
On the putting green, you can lift your ball.
I mean, you would.
Well, without being asked to do so, he gets a penalty under 18-2. What about if the ball's in motion, he'd be penalized under 22 and not 20.
It's one stroke no
It's
matter
gonna
what.
be one.
Well, under this, it's 20. It's 2 strokes under 22.
No, it would just be one. Right, because you're still moving your ball at rest.
So what's the penalty? I mean, penalty for breaching this rule says 2 strokes and a stroke. But
The general penalty?
Yeah.
The general penalty is if you lift your ball while the other, it's in motion. Yeah,
That's 2.
that's 2.
Okay, so what we talked about last, it would be a 2-stroke penalty. All right. And that's the penalty statement there. So just to go over again what Craig said, if the ball was lifted, that might influence the movement of the ball in motion, then we'd have a 2-stroke penalty there. In stroke play, match play, loss of hole. Key decisions for Rule 22. Any questions on 22? Okay. Switch over to the other presentation really quick.
When would that happen? I'll ask her, when
What?
would that happen?
What? I didn't hear.
No, note number 2.
Hmm?
When another ball is in motion, a ball that might influence the movement of the ball in motion must not be lifted. Why would it?
Let's say that
Scenario.
Yeah.
let's say that the ball is on the fringe and someone's hitting a pitch shot and they think their ball might get hit, and instead of letting it get hit, they go up and they pick it
Oh,
up.
they run up there and.
Oh,
Yep.
while he's putting, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Or it could just be rolling along the ground, you see he's headed for your ball, so you're lifted up. So
Oh, that's right, you have to be close to your ball.
Mm-hmm.
Would be kind of silly.
This is not the most likely term.
As long as any ball's in motion, not necessarily just under green. Like if he's chipping
Mm-hmm.
and the ball's on the fringe and it gets up.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be under green.
No. It most often would happen on the green.
Yeah, most likely.
Because,
Fringe.
you know, if you putt and hit my ball, it's going to be a 2-stroke penalty on you. And I could be thinking I'm a nice guy and run over and pick up my ball so you don't get 2 strokes.
What if somebody
I
leaves the
can't do
ball?
that.
Let's say, you got the line, and it's going to break a little bit, and the guy's ball is like 3 foot from where it's going to break, and he leaves his ball there.
Mm-hmm.
The guy puts the ball and purposely,
It's coming in that direction. You can't go lift your ball.
so
That's what this is saying.
All right. So 18. Ball at rest move. So when the ball at rest is moved by an outside agency, there is no penalty and the ball must be replaced. So an example of an outside agency could be a spectator, could be a dog running across the green, which there's quite a few decisions in there about the dog running across the green or through the fairway. But again, in this situation, if the ball at rest is moved by an outside agency, it's going to be no penalty and the ball must be replaced. And now it's a question of fact whether the ball has been moved by the outside agency, so we need to have known or virtual certainty that it was moved by the outside agency. So that could be us seeing that dog running across the green with the ball. It could be, another group out there that told us, hey, your ball was 5 feet next to the hole and some dog picked it up and dropped it in the bunker. That could be virtual certainty as well. Yeah, Jim?
Once again, a golfer is entitled to and stuck with the results of their last shot. The ball is at rest and something else comes along and moves it, you put it back.
Right.
Entitled to and stuck with the results of your last shot.
Other than wind or something natural. But yeah, you're right. Yep. All right.
Don't you have a seagull video for us, Kyle?
Oh, I don't have that one. That is a good one. Yeah, the video that Dan's referencing, I think it's at TPC Sawgrass.
TPC, yeah.
Where the seagull kind of picks it up and then drops it and then picks it up again and it goes in the water. And so the player would put it back where it was before the seagull got it and dropped it, and they wouldn't have to take water hazard relief. That would be unfair. And if a situation where we wouldn't have virtual certainty could be where we hit the ball in another fairway, and we know it's over there somewhere, and we go over there and we can't find it. We can't just assume that the other group that was playing the opposite way picked it up. We have to have some, we have to be known or virtually certain. So maybe if that group came back and said, hey, I accidentally picked up your ball, that's known or virtual certainty, but we can't just assume that they picked it up because it was definitely there. I definitely hit it in the wrong fairway, but you don't know where it actually ended up.
Yeah, not in the water.
Oh, yeah.
Right, sure.
Let's talk about Sunday afternoon.
All right, now if it's moved by yourself, your partner, your caddies, or your equipment, so basically your side, when this happens, except as permitted by the rules, the player, his partner, or either of their caddies, if he lifts or moves the ball, if they touch it purposely, except with the club in the act of addressing the ball, or they cause the ball to move, it's going to be a penalty of 1 stroke. In addition, if the equipment of the player or partner or caddy or side causes the ball to move, it will also be a 1-stroke penalty. So if you're driving your cart and you run over your ball and it moves, that's going to be a penalty because that cart is part of your equipment.
Going back to the previous situation or issue, let's say you hit the ball and you couldn't find it, and you now look for your 5 minutes, and you go back, and then a period of time later, another group comes up and finds a ball, and then say, "Hey, I found this ball. Is it yours?" That player had already taken the penalty and played, under a rule. Can that condition absolve the fact that it was this guy found the ball, but now he's admitted it?
Yeah,
Is there?
No, he's
still
now dropping the ball
still
properly under a specific rule that's applicable.
That rule, and then that ball is the ball in play.
Yeah, but there isn't a.
No
It
grace.
goes back and
Nope.
This guy, hey, he comes back and gives me my ball back. That's still.
You do get the
You get the
ball.
ball, right? Okay, all right. There is no.
Search for free
there's never been-
You were right.
Picked up early, right?
And before he puts another ball back in play,
Mhm.
some guy says, "I think I might have found your ball," and it's within 5 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
now then
Then
he's okay.
you're
but-
inside the
right.
yeah. or you haven't put it back in play.
Right.
But okay, once it's back
Once
in
you
play,
put it back in play, yeah, you're just,
too bad.
yep, exactly.
Okay.
We go over the movement of the ball, especially in senior events when they're in a cart and they're driving down towards the balls. Let's say the driver hasn't started looking for his ball. He drives over the opponent's ball, or he says he's not searching for it yet, and he drives over the ball. But I need a breakdown on that because there's several things that happen.
Sure. So you got Rule 18 opened up, right?
Yeah.
Get mine up. So
If you're riding a cart and you haven't started searching yet, but you went over the ball.
if it's your ball, it's going to be a penalty.
Yep.
Or your partner's ball. If it's your side's ball, it's going to be a penalty. And then for the match play, you're going to look under 18-3.
Right.
And so if it's during search, it's okay. But if it's not during search, then you're going to have a penalty.
That's
So-
only for the opponent.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yes. So if you're helping to search for the person that you're playing against's ball in match play, and you run over it, it's okay.
Okay.
But let's say you're driving down the fairway, and you're not really searching for it. You're just driving toward your ball, and then you run over it. Then it's going to be a penalty.
I would say.
And there is no known or virtually certain that you ran it over?
It's embedded.
Yes, that was the other thing that happened.
Well, I had that happen. in the
Yeah,
ladies'
I mean-
tournament. They were a lot more vicious than the seniors.
She ran over.
I mean, I would say if you couldn't prove whose cart ran, I mean, if there were 4 carts riding around, I mean, if you couldn't determine it, then you know the benefit of the doubt would go to the player. I don't know if that exact wording is in there. I know it's
tire marks
similar,
will lead them right to you.
but no, yeah, exactly. So
Come on, make sure it's the right card.
Heat strips on a women's cart on their tires so they know which one goes to the ball.
Even as a rules official, I tend to drive in the fairway only and then get out and
Yeah.
walk in the rough just for that reason.
You don't want to drive in the rough of somebody's playing.
No.
Because you don't know where the ball is.
And then it was a bet.
So in that case, if we're just it's stroke play and I'm riding down and I run over someone else's ball in my group and the ball gets embedded, what do we do to fix that?
Start over.
I think if in that case, you just look at it and drop it as close to that spot as possible.
Drop it or place it.
Place it at the nearest
I think you
spot.
They don't know where it moved or not when you hit it.
Well, if it's embedded, you can tell the ball.
If it's embedded, what situation do you have?
It's not, it's pitch
But
mark.
it's not,
this one. It's not.
The lie has been altered.
Right.
Yeah, it lies in all.
So in that case, then that's 20-3, right? I mean, I'm asking for my own knowledge. I'm not saying I know.
Move by it.
Let us answer it.
At the nearest.
If you know what the lie looked like, you're going to place it. If you don't know, you're going to drop it.
Within one club length, in
Yeah.
the position that's most likely.
Well,
to
actually,
that.
yeah, if the lie has been altered, it's as near as possible.
Yeah, that happened on this amateur last year, the final match.
Ooh.
Great grand
Well,
ball.
No, it was amateur.
Was it Greer?
The flat Greer and girl from U of M. We had a guy out there handing out wet towels to keep players. And he's running around the course handing out towels, and he runs over one of the players' balls. The line was altered because it got pushed down, so she was able to place it in the nearest same line. That she
Mhm.
had.
Mhm.
Should have not been run over. It does happen. Or officials will run over the ball.
Gary Edelman did that. I was spotting in the drive zone, and he comes across the fairway to say hi, and the ball flies over. He said, where'd that come from? I said, you just ran over it." Yes.
So
Oh,
if you,
Gary.
basically,
Make a determination whether or not someone's searching.
The minute you leave the tee, you're looking for your golf ball. That's-
When you get to the area where you think it's supposed
Yeah.
to be,
Right.
is when you're searching. I mean, not the minute you leave the tee. You know you hit
It's
the
a
ball.
judgment call. I get it.
Yeah, you know you hit the ball 150 yards or 200 yards, whatever it is.
You know, I can't see that far, so I.
Don't drive the cart in it.
No, I don't think driving carts in the wrong shit.
Why don't you go like this?
When he's down in the grass.
Yeah. That's when you start the clock. So.
Yeah. If you have to get there off the tee, that's too bad.
But only you.
All right, so again, back to this, if the ball's moved by yourself, your partner, your caddy, or your equipment, if the ball's moved, it's going to be needed to be replaced. All right. Now, the one exception to that is if the ball has started to move after you've begun your stroke or your backward movement of your club and you finish the stroke. So we talked about that a little bit earlier under 14, I believe. So in that case, there would be no penalty, and you would just play it. But any other time you move your ball, you're gonna have to place it back.
So Kyle, the new local rule amends 18.2.
On the green.
On the green?
Right, correct. So yeah, so
Accident.
exactly. So that's a good point. So with this new local rule, as long as it's in effect, which it will be for all of our events, if this happens on the green, there is no penalty as long as it's accidental, and place it back if you did cause it to move.
The rules school question that I'm studying was, I'm marking my ball, my partner is leaning down to mark his ball and accidentally takes my ball. The rules in effect.
No penalty. But if it wasn't in effect, you'd have a penalty there, right? Yeah. All right, so here, as we were just alluding to, there is no penalty if the player accidentally causes the ball to move in the following circumstances. So number one is that on the putting green. We also talked about a few of these other ones in searching for a ball covered by sand, or in recreating the lie of a ball that has been altered during such a process, in the replacement of loose impediments moved in a hazard while finding or identifying a ball, in probing for a ball lying in water in a water hazard, or in searching for a ball in an obstruction or an abnormal ground condition. So in all those cases, if we accidentally cause our ball to move, there's not going to be any penalty. We still put the ball back, but no penalty. If you're repairing a hole plug or a ball mark on the green, then we're on the putting green. So, and then in measuring, we're measuring our 2 club lengths and we accidentally move our ball. No penalty there. If we're lifting a ball under a rule, and if we're placing or replacing a ball under the rule, if it accidentally moves, in that case, there's no penalty, we put it back. And the second to last one, in removing a loose impediment on the putting green. And then in removing movable obstructions, the ball were to move. So that's our rate in a bunker situation there. All right, so now it's match play. So as we talked about in match play, during search, if during search for a player's ball, an opponent's, his caddy or his equipment moves the ball, touches it, or causes it to move, there is no penalty, and the ball must be replaced. So that doesn't talk about you in match play, but it talks about your opponent in match play. And if it's not during search, an opponent, his caddy, or his equipment moves the ball, touches it, purposely or cause it to move, except as otherwise provided in the rules, the opponent incurs a penalty of 1 stroke. And then the ball must be replaced. So this is an example of where we have a 1 stroke penalty in match play. There's a few of them, but this is one example where the penalty in match play is not always loss of hole.
Kyle, I made a note here from a rule school. These two, A and B, during search, I wrote down, that's before it's found. Now, I agree if you've hit the tee shot somewhere in 200, the first 170-yard drive is not during search. But once everybody's in the area, A applies before the ball is found, once the ball is in sight, B.
So once it's in sight, so if you can see it.
Yep. Now, if you drive over it, it isn't during search.
Okay.
Those were our exact words last year.
Oh, they're still using the same line?
No.
Oh, you and I were at the same school.
We were the same.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then a couple exceptions. If you're playing the wrong ball, that's going to be a loss of hole penalty for match play. And then if the ball's moving measuring, there's going to be no penalty in that case. Ball placed back. All right, so if the ball at rest is moved by a fellow competitor, their caddy or equipment in stroke play, there's going to be no penalty, and the ball needs to be replaced. So if I'm walking down the fairway and I accidentally kick Jean's ball, who I'm playing with, in stroke play, we just move the ball back. There's no penalty to me. There's no penalty to her.
Again, from rule school, they say that's because in stroke play, that person is an outside agency.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Exception to that is playing a wrong ball. If we hit a wrong ball, we're going to have a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play. And then we got to go back and fix that. All right, so now a ball at rest gets moved by another ball. This situation happens fairly regularly, I would say, out there at tournaments. So again, if the ball at rest is moved by a ball in motion, the ball must be replaced, and no penalty. Now, if we don't see this happen, and no one knows about it, and they play from the place where the ball ended up, that's fine. But if we see it, let's say we're on a par 3 and there's a ball that's 5 feet away, and the next shot comes up and hits that ball that's 5 feet and knocks it in the hole. Well, we saw that ball move, so we're going to put the ball back to 5 feet, and the other ball, they're just going to play it as it lies.
Can I make a comment here? I have underlined in motion after a stroke because this clause does not apply. If I'm playing with Elaine and we're on the green and I've lifted to clean my ball and I drop my ball and it moves hers, that's an entirely different situation. That don't come to ball moved by another ball because this is only after a stroke. The other thing would be her ball at rest is moved by her opponent's equipment.
But in that case, if the new local rule is in effect, would it be accidental?
On the green.
On the green. That would be the only time I'd have
Right.
it. Well, no, if she'd asked me to lift my ball because it was interfering and I happened to drop it.
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be only on the green.
All right, 18-6, ball moved and measuring. So the ball or ball marker is moved and measuring while proceeding under or determining the application of a rule. The ball or the ball marker must be replaced. There's no penalty, provided the movement of the ball or ball marker is directly attributable to the specific act of measuring. Otherwise, the provisions of Rule 18-2, 18-3B, or 18-4 apply. So, again, and this is a situation where we have that language directly attributable, where that still will come into play when we're not talking about the putting green, but if we're talking about the putting green, whether it's directly attributable or not to measuring, if it's accidental, there's not going to be any penalty, right? But anytime we do have a ball that's moved while we're measuring, there's not going to be any penalty. Yeah, and if it wasn't directly attributable to measuring, and it's not on the putting green, and it wasn't an accident, then we're going to have a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play or a loss of hole in match play. And then this last note here: if a player who is required to replace a ball fails to do so, this note is really for all of Rule 18. If a player who is required to replace a ball fails to do so, or if he makes a stroke at a ball substituted under Rule 18 when such substitution is not permitted, he incurs the general penalty for breach of Rule 18, but there's no additional penalty under this rule. So this is our 2 + 1 = 2 concept, where if they're going to be playing from a wrong place, essentially by not putting the ball back, we're not going to get an additional 1-stroke penalty for moving the ball, just that general 2-stroke penalty. Note 1, so if the ball's not immediately recoverable, another ball may be substituted. So decision 18/11 talks about or defines what immediately recoverable means. Basically, what they say is if it can't be found or recovered within a few seconds, that's their definition of immediately recoverable. And then note 2, if the original lie of the ball to be placed or replaced has been altered, see 20-3B, so that situation we were talking about earlier where the cart or the ball gets run over, the lie is going to be altered. So if we know exactly where the ball is, we can place it in the nearest most similar spot. And if we weren't sure exactly where it was, we're going to drop it in the nearest most similar spot that we estimate. And then if it's impossible to determine the spot on which the ball, as we just talked about, the spot on which the ball is to be placed or replaced, see Rule 20-3C. So that's when we would drop it. Key decisions here in 18. And this, I think, this rule is going to be a tough one to kind of think about this year because of this new local rule that's in effect. It's going to change a lot of what's listed in the rule book. Like we've been talking about, there's so many things that with this new local rule in place, so many of these things don't apply. So it's going to be challenging to keep that straight and be sure when we're talking about when the ball at rest is moved, we're really we need to make sure if it's on the putting green or not, because it's going to make a big difference in what the ruling is, especially this year. Any questions about Rule 18?
Question. This, Jeannie, feel free to really wet me if I'm off base. Again, instead of memorizing all these pages, if you think about it logically, the game is played hole by hole. The play of a hole starts when you make a stroke at a ball on the teeing ground. Thereafter, you can only advance the ball by hitting it with a club until it goes into the hole, at which point the hole is over. This rule governs what happens when you touch your ball and the rules don't allow it. 1-stroke penalty. Why is it one stroke? Because you're putting your ball back where it was. It's 2 strokes, and only 2 strokes if you put it back anywhere else. So if you can get your situation to fit under Rule 18, it's 1 or 2, but never 3. There's another way of saying 2 plus 1 is 2.
Mhm.
But I mean, to me, that logic makes sense.
I'm old enough to remember when it wasn't always a putback.
Really?
Sometimes it was played as it lies and sometimes it was putting back.
Wow.
That was a real pain.
But
That's been at least 20 years now that they changed
Did you
that.
get into it with Dottie over that one?
I don't think so.
all right. 19. So ball in motion, deflected or stopped. Right, so again, if it's deflected or stopped accidentally by an outside agency, it's quote unquote rub of the green, and there is no penalty, and the ball must be played as it lies, except in the following circumstances. If a player's ball in motion after a stroke other than on the putting green comes to rest in or on any moving or animate outside agency, the ball must sue the green or in a hazard be dropped or on the putting green be placed as near as possible to the spot directly under the place where the ball came to rest in or on the outside agency, but not near the hole. So could be a player's ball was in motion and it got deflected by a golf cart that was there, and the golf cart or the ball comes to rest in the back end of the golf cart. Right, so we're just gonna take that spot directly under where the ball is, and we're gonna drop there. And then the other situation, if it's on the putting green, if it's deflected or stopped, or comes to rest on, or comes to rest in or on any moving or animate outside agency except a worm, insect, or the like, the stroke is canceled, the ball must be replaced and replayed. So if it's on the putting green and something causes your ball to be deflected or stopped, you're going to cancel the stroke and then replay it if it's an outside agency. And then if the ball isn't a recoverable, then another ball may be substituted.
This is why you as a rules official better be real careful when you park your cart. Because if a player's ball strikes your cart and bounces out of bounds, guess what?
That's out of bounds.
Player's out of bounds.
But if it bounces onto the fairway, you're a hero.
I tried that.
If it hits me, it's gonna go the other way.
That's all possible.
And be careful not to drive away if there's a ball in the back of your cart.
I had
I
one
think
end
this-
up on my card.
Yeah, now, Gene, I've got a question for you, and I think I've heard this, and this might be very not practical, but let's say that someone's hitting a drive, and they hit their drive, and while they're driving, the ball goes into a moving golf cart, and the ball,
While they're driving, it goes.
sorry, so the ball's in the air,
Yeah.
and it goes into a cart that's moving.
Yep.
And it goes in the back of the cart, and it just keeps moving back and forth in the bin. The
Mhm.
ball never really comes to rest.
Eventually it has to.
Eventually, it
Yeah,
does.
the
But
cart
if they keep driving another 100 yards, is that
Oh.
where you would?
You have to estimate
No.
the point where the ball
Oh, I see what you're getting at. No, I would have them drop where it entered the cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta estimate where it entered the cart.
Does it not say
Because,
that?
well, but it talks about that a little bit later, but it says when it where it comes to rest or whatever.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And in that case, it's not necessarily coming to rest. I mean, I know it's probably very rarely happens, probably never. Maybe it's happened once, but
If it goes into a golf bag in the back of the cart, you take the bag off the cart and the ball.
Just keep on
and
walking.
drop the ball under where the cart was parked.
It's not immediately recoverable.
I'm sorry?
It is not immediately recoverable.
right.
Well, it was only recoverable when I dumped everything on it.
Oh, so it happened.
Absolutely.
I-
They-
Looking at B, If a player's ball in motion after a stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped by blah, 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 a fellow competitor is an animate object, whether he's moving or not. So if you'd putt and it's deflected by a fellow competitor's foot, I think that applies there. The ball must be replaced and replayed.
Or isn't it maybe one of those rule 1.4? The rules don't contemplate this situation, so just drop it under where it landed.
Yeah, well, I don't think so. Yeah, I think the stroke gets canceled. The fellow competitor is an animate. He's alive.
Wait, where is this
Outside.
at? Sorry.
B, if a player's ball in motion after a stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped by or comes to rest in or on any moving or animate outside agency, a fellow competitor is animate. He's alive. He could.
But is he an outside agent?
Sure. In stroke play, he is. He's an outside agent.
That's only on the pipe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if my putt ricochets off your foot, I replace it
You replay. Ready?
and replay it. Cancel and replay.
Well, that's the Happy Gilmore rule, right? We don't play it off the guy's foot. We just
Well, it
put
didn't
on
come
the-
to rest. It just ricocheted off his foot.
No, that one's came to rest on his foot.
Oh, well, I didn't see
Rest
that.
on top of
What
stove.
page are you reading that off of?
Page 298. 298. It's in the rule. I'm in the rule.
Yeah.
B, 19-1B.
Oh, 19.3B is what I was looking at.
It says it rules.
Yeah, that's what
Not
I gotta think
not
about.
that it deflects off of his shoe. It says if it comes to rest or on.
It says is deflected or stopped by or comes to rest
Okay,
in
you're
or
right.
on. Any of those circumstances.
So when he's putting, don't be walking.
But you don't even you could be standing
Yeah.
absolutely still.
I mean, as long
And
as
if
you're
I
hiding
am
that
that-
front of him, you're fine.
But Gene, if you go from
You haven't seen
19,
me putt.
if you go from 19-4
What? Oh. Yeah.
and then back to the paragraph that you referenced,
19-4.
if it's
Ball in motion.
It says C 19-1.
so then the only exception is the putting green.
No, the only exception is holding the flagstick. That's a whole different ballgame. If my fellow competitor is holding the flagstick and I hit his foot, that's a whole different problem.
17.
Because he's deemed to be attending the flag.
Yeah, that's a 2.
That's 2 strokes.
But he'd not be allowed to walk away if he sees the ball's coming at him, right?
Yeah, except if you're
As
my
long as
fellow
holding the
competitor, you might not want to.
Yeah, and
Or you might put the stroke-
19-1/5 is if it's deliberate.
19-1/5, you said?
Yeah, that's a deliberately hits it.
Right.
Yeah, that's under Rule 1.
Yeah. You do.
All right.
Yeah.
So as Gene was just saying, the exception under this scenario here is if the ball strikes a person attending or holding up the flagstick or anything carried by him, then we're going to have a 2-stroke penalty under Rule 17-3. And if a player's ball is in motion has been deliberately deflected or stopped by an outside agency. So this talks about where it's happened purposely. After a stroke from anywhere other than the putting green, the spot where the ball would have come to rest must be estimated. So if the spot is through the green or in a hazard, we're going to drop the ball as near as possible to the spot. If it's out of bounds, we have to go back. If it's determined that it's that the spot would have been out of bounds, then you have to go back to where they last played from. And then if it's going to be on the putting green, then we're going to place it. So this could be a situation where we've got a dad out there walking with his kid, and he sculls one over the green, and the dad stops it from going out of bounds. In that case, we have to determine if that ball was going to go out of bounds had he not stopped it or deflected it. And if we determine that it would have gone out of bounds, the player would be penalized under the out of bounds rule and have to go back from where they last played from. And if it was a stroke on the putting green, the stroke is canceled and it must be replaced and replayed. So that's going to be the case whether it's deliberate or accidental. If it's on the putting green, we're going to cancel the stroke and replay it. And as was mentioned here, 19-1/5, if the outside agency is a fellow competitor's caddy, Rule 1-2 applies to the fellow competitor. All right, so now we'll move to by yourself, your partner, your caddy, or your equipment. So if the player's ball is accidentally deflected or stopped by you or your partner or your caddy or your equipment, it's going to be a one-stroke penalty, and the ball will be played as it lies. Okay, except when it comes to rest in or on the players or partners or either of their caddies, clothes, or equipment, in which case the ball must through the green or in a hazard be dropped or on the putting green. Be placed as near as possible to the spot directly under the place where the ball came to rest. So if you're hitting in a bunker and you hit the lip and it comes back and hits your foot, that's going to be a one-stroke penalty. You're going to play it as it lies. Now let's say that you hit the ball out of the bunker and it comes to rest in your golf bag that was standing near the green. In that case, you're going to find out where that ball is and then go directly under that. And if that happens to be on the green, hopefully it's not on the green because hopefully you didn't put your bag on the green. But let's say for this case you did put your bag on the green, then since it's on the green there, you would place it in that case. But if it was on the fringe, you would drop it. And then you still get the one-stroke penalty, yeah. And again, the exception here is if it hits a person attending the flag or holding up the flag stick, that'll be a two-stroke penalty, not a one-stroke. And then if you're dropping a ball and it hits you or your equipment or your partner or your caddy, you're going to drop again. So that's just one of those situations that's a no drop. And you just keep dropping as many times as you need to in order to not have that happen. And then again, if it was purposely deflected or stopped by yourself or your caddy, then we've got some larger issues, which most likely will result in disqualification. And if it's deflected or stopped by your opponent in match play or their caddy or their equipment, and so this one we've actually got a choice. So if it's accidentally deflected or stopped by an opponent, his caddy, or his equipment, there is no penalty. And you may, before another stroke is made by either side, you can cancel the stroke and play again, or you can play the ball as it lies. So you've got a choice there. I guess you could choose whatever the best outcome is. However, if the player elects not to cancel the stroke and the ball has come to rest in or on the opponent's or his caddy's clothes or equipment, the ball must through the green or the hazard be dropped or in a putting green be placed as near as possible to the spot directly under the place where the ball came to rest. So let's say that you hit your opponent's golf bag and you don't want to replay the stroke because it stopped, maybe it stopped you from going in the bunker, and you're a really bad short game player and you just want to take this shot. You could just take that spot where the ball is underneath it and drop there and then pitch on the green or whatever from there if you wanted to. Or you could go back and play from where you last played from. And again, our exception, striking the flag stick and match play, that's going to be a loss of hole penalty. And then if it was purposely deflected or stopped, this rule talks about it being accidentally. If it's purposely, then we've got a different situation. All right, and 19-4 basically just says that the fellow competitor is an outside agency, and so it could be treated as Rule 19-1. Which again, if it's accidental, we're just going to play it as it lies. If it's not on the putting green, and then if it's off, if it is on the putting green, we're going to cancel and then replay the stroke.
What's interesting here is that in 93 is telling you that in match play, if your opponent and yourself are both on the putting green and your opponent is putting and strikes your ball, is there a penalty or not? There's no penalty. Right? There's no penalty.
No.
That's something quite unique in match play. You have two balls on the putting green, your opponent strikes your ball on the putting green, there's no penalty. You can replay the shot if you want, but there's no, you can play this once.
Well, go over to the top of page 300. If the player's ball in motion after a stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped by another ball in motion after stroke, the player, that first stroke is canceled, but it says
But that says they've both been hit. They're both in play, right?
they're both in motion, yeah. It says nothing in this rule, however, overrides the provisions of Rule 10.1 or 16.1F. Let's say A is 15 feet from the hole and B is 10 feet, and they both putt and they balls hit. Both putts are replayed, and B gets 2 strokes under Rule 16.1F because he played from closer to, yeah. Yep.
And that would be the case even if the balls didn't hit, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let me see. 16.1F.
16.1. That's an example of
Yep,
what you need to
yep.
know if you hope to get 100 on the exam.
Yes, yes. It's
But if it was match play, is there a loss of hole? If
Yes.
you play out of order
Yes.
on the putting green,
Yeah.
right? So it would just be loss of hole, wouldn't be a penalty.
But in
Stroke.
stroke play,
That is a penalty, loss of hole.
yeah.
It's not a stroke penalty.
Right. So
Putting out a turn.
So Craig, what you were saying, if two guys are on the putting green, and well, Craig's a little bit different. I think you were saying one ball is at rest, and then
Oh, one
guy
ball's at
plays.
rest. Oh,
Yeah. So that one, there's no penalty. And then you could
In match play.
replay. Yeah, exactly.
Not in stroke play.
Yeah, in match play. So you could recall that in match play if you wanted to. But if they were both moving, as Gene was saying, if they were both putting and the one was putting from 10 feet and one was putting from 15 feet, the person that putted from 10 feet would lose the hole in match play.
Right.
Provided that it was called, right? I mean, they could just keep playing if there was nothing they just
They don't.
And
They
then
wouldn't know what to do.
Right, exactly. I mean,
Even if they violate a rule, if they're oblivious of the rule, they're exonerated.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
This is like hockey.
Unless one of the two players is moving or still standing, yeah.
All right.
I think that's hard.
Next week will definitely be fun with match play. It's a whole different beast, that's for sure. All right. So again, we have this exception. If it's a fellow competitor, ball strikes person attending the flag stick, it's going to be a two-stroke penalty on the person that the ball was being played. And then if a player's ball in motion is deflected or stopped by a ball at rest, the player must play the ball as it lies. In match play, Craig was saying there's no penalty. In stroke play, there's no penalty unless both balls lay on the putting green prior to the stroke, in which case the player incurs a penalty of 2 strokes. So the player's ball who was in motion.
wait a second. It says The first sentence says, if a player's ball in motion after a stroke is deflected or stopped by a ball in play and at rest, the player must play the ball as it lies.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't give him the option to recall it or replay the stroke. Says he's got to play it as it lies.
So it doesn't say that's match play. It doesn't say that's match play.
Right?
It
This
just
would,
says in match play, there's no penalty.
that's after that sentence.
Yeah, that's the next
It
sentence.
doesn't apply to that first sentence.
Okay.
That first sentence means no matter what kind of play you're playing.
The player doesn't lies.
Mm-hmm. If your
ball's-
ball is at rest and mine hits you, I played my ball from where it
Doesn't
lies.
tell anybody here what to do with the ball you hit, and that ball has to be put back.
Well,
where it was.
that's under Rule 18, ball at rest moved. You put it back. That was the last rule we just did.
Oh, see, well, it just, it doesn't say that.
Well, I think-
for that, so I probably.
I don't know why this says in match play there's no penalty, because there's no penalty in stroke play either.
That's what it's.
They're both on the
Or
green.
if there's-
Well, it doesn't say it's on the green.
Right, but
Well, the rest of the rule does say that. Unless both balls are on the putting green.
I think maybe it's trying to distinguish between, because in 19-3, it talks about your opponent and their equipment, and then 19-5, it could be a stray ball, or it could be another ball that's not in play, potentially that does
Okay.
it, right? I mean, so the specific in 19-3 would take precedent over the general in 19-5. So the player could recall their stroke. Does that make sense, Gene?
I'm not sure.
No, this is saying they play their ball as it lies, not that they get to replay their stroke.
Right. Stopped by a ball in play and at rest. It's not,
So the person plays in turn. I play in turn. Your ball is at rest.
Yeah.
My ball is deflected. I have to play it as it lies.
Mhm.
Yeah, but what
Yeah,
about my
man.
ball?
No. All right, now let's move to the putting green.
Mhm. Same
This
thing.
is the one where I think that's.
Exactly the same thing.
No, that's the point.
Mhm.
That's the point, that in match play, your ball is on the green. It is my turn to play.
Mhm.
I play it, and my ball hits your ball. I play it as it lies, but there is no penalty. In match play, that ball is a part of the match. It's not an outside agency like it is in stroke play. And what they're saying is, just play it as it lies, but you don't have any penalty. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's making it really complicated. Anytime a ball at rest is moved by ball in motion, you put the ball at rest back.
Yeah.
And the ball in motion is played as it lies unless it was putted from the putting green. Then you have a different situation. So in other words, my tee shot hits your tee shot.
No, but here, wouldn't you read this to say, your ball is closer to the hole than my ball on the green?
I don't think that is relevant at all to this.
My ball hits your ball. Well, would that take away the chance to replay the stroke?
This has
No,
nothing
no,
to
no,
do
no,
with
no.
on the
Whether
green.
you're on the green or off the green when you put your ball. I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
But except, that's the odd part of it. They sort of take match play out of it and then go ahead to talk about what's going to happen only in stroke play on the green.
What they tell you in match play as well. There's just,
There's no
the
penalty.
first sentence just says,
In general,
In
anytime this happens, no matter where it happens, this is what happens.
Then you play it as a lie.
Yeah.
The other guy has to put their ball.
and then the other ball that's struck is.
Just
ball
put back,
that's moved, you put it back.
and there's no penalty unless.
unless they were both on the green.
In which case in stroke play.
It's two. That's only in
Mhm.
stroke play.
Yep.
Only stroke.
But so then in match play, you got two balls, let's just say on the putting green just for whatever. Or actually it doesn't really matter, but let's say you got two balls on the putting green and my ball in motion hits Jack's ball. I don't have the option to
It's at
replay that?
His ball's at rest though when you hit it.
It's at rest.
Sure.
Makes a difference.
Only when both balls are.
If a player's ball in motion after a stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped by or comes to rest on any moving outside agency, the ball must be replaced and replayed. You get to replay your shot.
Right.
Yes.
So what,
But you're gonna get 2 strokes for hitting my ball that's on the green under Rule 19.5. Because you said it was stroke play, did you?
no.
Oh, you said it was match play, no penalty then, and you replay your shot.
Right.
Yeah.
It says you must play it as it lies.
No, it says here you play as it lies.
But 19.3 says that if I hit my opponent's equipment,
Yeah.
which is their ball.
Yeah, but we're talking about a ball.
I think what Jim is saying, that in match play, that's not equipment, it's a different terminology for that ball. Right, Jim? Is that what you said?
No, I mean, I'm looking at the definition of equipment and it says
Busy written
any
down.
ball that the player has played at the hole being played.
Right.
Is an exception.
Is the exception. Okay, so it's not.
It's not equipment. So we're talking about match play if you putt and hit Jack's ball. You're both on the green.
Right.
There's no penalty for hitting his ball.
He gets to replace his ball if you get to replay, right? In that.
Yeah,
The first
under
sentence-
19.1.
The first sentence is talking about either stroke or match play. 'Cause then you
Yes,
have a period that says in match play.
That's right.
There is no penalty. In
That's
stroke
right.
play, there is a penalty, but you don't have to, both situations, you play your ball as it lies.
Yep.
No canceling the stroke. But they don't say.
Well,
the other
no,
way.
no, you go back to 19.1. 19.1
It doesn't say that in
applies,
here.
I don't care. 19.1 applies to both stroke and match. That's the governing rule here. Now, over here, it says if a player's ball in motion after stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped or come any moving or outside agency. Oh, this is match play. That's not an outside agency.
I think that's what Jim was saying. a little
That's
bit
not
ago.
an outside
In
agency.
match play, the ball is a different terminology. I'm
Well,
not sure what he said now, 'cause I don't remember.
Well, no. It's an
It's-
in stroke play, one player has to any other player, and that's all outside agencies. In match play, it is a part of the match, so it's no longer an outside agency.
Okay, it doesn't have another term for it then. It's just not
Well, I
outside
didn't
agency.
say that.
I thought you said something
You
about.
never know when you're gonna turn the page.
just a minute here. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my hangup is, why have that sentence about match play? So here, we've got a ball in motion, deflected or stopped by another ball that is at rest. So somebody's hit a shot, that ball's doing something, and it hits a ball that is at rest.
Right.
There's no penalty. The player that hit the ball plays it as it lies. So why does the rule then say in match play there's no penalty?
I don't know.
I mean, for better or worse, we do know that when they put something here, they did it for a reason. We might not always agree with the reason. but
Maybe-
they did it
You
for
think
a
they
reason.
did.
Maybe they're doing that because in stroke play, if it,
There is a penalty.
yeah, there is a penalty if they're both on the green.
They just send a note to golf house
So
and ask
maybe-
them to amend this.
maybe that's why they-
Strike that
they're
sentence out while they're
distinguishing
making
the
revisions.
All right, so I think I'm confused a little bit, but so basically we have a situation where player, it's match play. Player hits their putt and it hits their opponent's ball. No penalty. Play it as it lies. And that's it.
I think you're right, that's it. There's no
Yeah.
option to replay it at that point, right? No, that's it.
Yep, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
And replace the ball that was hit.
Correct. Yep. The ball that was at rest moves back to
Yep.
where it was. Yep. That's important.
Well, that's why that funny sentence on the top of 300 Gene was reading.
Well, that's where you really get in confusion, when they're both moving.
Yeah.
All right. So are we ready to move to a ball and
Please.
motion? Sorry for that. All right. So now the ball in motion is deflected or stopped by another ball in motion. Okay. So other other than on the putting green, you're just going to play it as it lies. There's no penalty to either player. And if a ball is in motion after a stroke on the putting green, is deflected or stopped by another ball in motion after a stroke, the player's stroke is canceled. The ball must be replaced and replayed. So going back to our situation, if I'm putting and I putt my ball and it's rolling towards the hole, and then someone's ball from the other hole comes on the green and hits my ball, I'm going to cancel the stroke and then replay it. But if we're going back and forth on the same fairways and our drives collide with each other, we're just going to play it as it lies. So we're only going to cancel the stroke if it's on the putting green. All right, so nothing in this rule overrides the provisions of Rule 10-1 or 16-1F. So as we talked about earlier, now if it was match play and we had a player that was 10 feet away, play first or play a ball while another ball is in motion, that person's going to lose the hole. If their balls collide, it doesn't really matter. That person who putted away from 10 feet is going to lose the hole. Okay. All right, and then the penalty statement for this rule: loss of hole in match play, stroke play, 2 strokes. Only one key decision from my experiences in this one. So
For all that, we only got one key
yeah.
decision,
All the rest of those don't matter, huh?
Sure.
Next year it'll be 19 dash whatever. We're talking 19 dash or 19-5 slash whatever. We'll get one in there. All right. Any questions about Rule 19?
Yes.
Yes.
Page 249, under the putting green, 16-1B2, 16-1B3, everything that we've been kicking around. There are specific decisions here under the putting green about a ball in motion and then the ball that's eventually hit being moved, being placed or replaced or lifted, which I'm not sure that these rules fit into what we were talking about under 19. They're specific to the putting green, and 19 doesn't talk about it.
So I think what 19 did say though is that that in those situations, well, no, it says 1F.
What decision are you talking about? Are you talking about rules or decisions?
16-1B2 decision
It's a decision.
on page 249.
It still was talking about
There's
a ball in motion. I picked up
You
another ball.
replace your ball, and then you move it. And /3 is you replace the ball, and it subsequently deflects.
But it also speaks of whether it's an unintentional or intentional act. So there's a penalty or no penalty. So if your intent was to deflect that ball away from the hole by putting the ball back out, then the rule that's been breached is not 16. The rule that was breached there is 1-2. Exerting influence over the ball.
And 19 does not differentiate whether that ball is intentionally there to be deflected.
No.
We talked about playing out of turn.
Yep. That's order of plays under 10.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on 19? All right, well, we'll jump forward into practice here. Rule 7. Okay, so between rounds, in match play on any day of the match play competition, the player may practice on the competition course before a round. No problem. Stroke play, a little bit different. Before a round or playoff on any day of a stroke play competition, the competitor must not practice on the course or test the surface of any putting green on the course by rolling a ball or roughening or scraping the surface. So when 2 or more rounds of a stroke play competition are to be played over consecutive days, a person must not practice between those 2 rounds on any competition course remaining to be played. So if you're playing different courses, course A, day 1, course B, day 2, you could practice on course A after day 1, but not course B. And that also considers a playoff as well. So if the playoff might be on course A, you can't practice on course A.
When does the day start? On match play,
It's just one, I guess it'd be.
the day would start after the stroke play is over, because you might do things in one day.
Okay, so you're saying you're playing stroke play to qualify for the match play in the afternoon.
Correct.
I bet there's a decision on
Yeah.
that. No, seriously.
As long as
Because
I would say it's-
if you finish the stroke play and you might be in a playoff, you better not practice on that course.
It says any day.
Right.
Are you talking before or during?
I'm talking any day.
Well, for
Let's
example,
say-
if the term is
On any day,
Let's say.
the stroke play is over, so now you could practice before match, no problem. No problem. However, if you might wind up in a playoff to determine whether you get in the match play, and that's on that course, and you've practiced, you're screwed. Yeah.
You're not in the playoff.
What?
You're not in the playoff.
No.
Kyle, somebody explained, and Jay, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason for this is a very practical reason. There's only 2 or 4 people in a match, so it's no problem. But when you've got a field of 70, if they want to go out and practice on the course, now you got a problem. So the practical reason that you can do it in match play but not in stroke play is in match play, very small number, in stroke play, big number.
It starts at 64.
Yeah. But no, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I would say that's true. All right, so the exception, practice putting or chipping on or near the first team ground or any practice area before starting a round or playoff is okay. I mean, we obviously see that people practicing on the practice putting green. Or if they wanted to chip on the first team ground, they could do that as well. And then, as Gene was saying, if they did happen to practice on a course that was going to be used for a competition later, they would be disqualified. So here, the committee may, in the conditions of the competition, prohibit practice on the competition course on any day of a match play competition, or permit practice in the competition course or part of the course on any day of or between rounds of a stroke play competition. So if you have a 2-day event and they're on 2 different courses, the committee could say it's okay to practice on the courses in between. So for example, a TPC Sawgrass, when we used to do a tournament there at my previous job, we played on the Valley course and the Stadium course. And we would allow the players to play a practice round on whatever course they wanted after their first round if they wanted to, because a lot of these kids were coming down and on the weekend or whatever, and they wanted to play with dad, and we weren't going to tell them, no, they can't go play. So we just let them do that. But the committee decides that, and if the committee doesn't put a note in saying that it's okay, if they were to go out and play a course that was to be played later, they'd be disqualified. All right, so during round, a player must not make a practice stroke during the playable hole. between the plays of the hole, the player must not make a practice stroke, except that the player may practice putting or chipping on or near the putting green of the hole last being played, any practice putting green, the teeing ground of the next hole to be played, and then provided that this practice stroke is not made from hazard and doesn't slow play, they're okay. There's no penalty. So 4 stakers, there's that practice putting green, 4 stakers west, there's that practice putting green out in the middle of 13, 16, whatever. If a player got done playing a hole and went over there and started practice putting, if they weren't slowing up the group behind them, there would be no penalty there. Now, luckily, all of our good officials would say, hey, you're slowing up the group behind you, get on to the next hole. So that kind of our, undue delay is kind of our saving grace, so to speak, because we don't put the local rule in, which we'll see here in a little bit. So strokes made in continuing the play of a hole, the result of which has been decided, are not practice strokes. So this is common in match play. Decision 7-2/1.7 covers this. And so here it is here on the screen. So what is meant by continuing the play of the hole? So the phrase covers situations in which a player plays the remainder of the hole with 1 ball in play. Its interpretation is not restricted to continuing the play of the hole in accordance with the rules and includes, for example, situations where a player plays a ball from the spot close to where his original ball went out of bounds or in the area where it was lost. So if I'm playing a 4-ball event and my partner's in the fairway and I hit it towards out of bounds and my ball ends up out of bounds and I can't find it, I can drop the ball and keep playing. There would be no issue there.
Score wouldn't count for you.
Right, well, exactly. My score wouldn't count. I'd be, that's my partner's hole there. All right, so exception. The exception is when the play has been suspended by the committee. The player may, prior to the resumption of play practice as provided in this rule, anywhere anywhere other than on the competition course and otherwise is permitted by the committee. So that would be technically not during the stipulated round, but still okay to be able to practice prior to us going out to play. We would allow that. And in some cases we won't. If we've been off the course for 30 minutes, we're probably not going to give them time to warm up, and we're just going to send them back out there. But if they wanted to go practice on the putting green prior to and it was safe to play, they could do that. So during the round, if we practice during the round and match play, we'll lose the hole. Stroke play it'll be 2-stroke penalty. And in the event of a breach between 2 holes, the penalty applies to the next hole. And this just says a practice swing is not practice swing is not a practice stroke. You can take those whenever you want, provided that it doesn't breach a rule. So not like a hazard or anything like that. Ground your club. The committee may, in the conditions of the competition, prohibit practice on or near the putting green of the hole last played, or rolling a ball on a putting green of the hole last played. So this is a local rule that a lot of committees will put in place. And so this is the recommended wording. Between the play of 2 holes, the player must not make any practice stroke on or near the putting green of the hole last played and must not touch the surface of the putting green of the hole last played by rolling a ball. And then if you did put this local rule in, you would also want to have this penalty statement adjusted. So if that did happen, you would lose the next hole in match play and you would get 2 strokes on your next hole.
Kyle, the USGA is pretty strict about near the next teeing ground of the hole that you're going to play next. And with the multiple teeing grounds and huge teeing grounds, if you're 40 yards back on the same pad, is not near the teeing ground, because the teeing ground is 2 club lengths, wherever those tee markers are, and it has to be near. It can't be on some other teeing pad. And they're really very strict about that. I bet you that's one of the things that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
In 2020.
It'll go away.
Well, they're gonna change a lot of the stuff, and I think that's probably one that they're gonna clean up.
They could just say that practice isn't allowed, and then they would tell you.
That, yeah,
That would do it.
They don't even say near the team ground, they say that team ground
where?
in the rule on 7-2.
No, it
That's
says-
the way they get you on the test. The tees are on one and the guy's on another.
No, it says may practice putting or chipping on or near
Oh, okay.
the teeing ground of the next hole. And they mean within 5 or 10 yards, really close. They don't mean 30 or 40 yards away or on some other pad, just because that's also a tee pad for the 7th hole.
So,
And you
so
practice
if
anywhere
you were
on that particular
Mhm.
pad, the teeing ground is
Mhm.
on. If, I mean, this pad is this long, the teeing ground's up here, it's still part of that teeing ground, but the pad is.
That's not near.
That's not near.
No.
But you gotta do it inside.
You got to do it close. You got to do it near.
Yes,
It's
because
like
team
the
ground-
definition of going forward, you only have 50 yards now, you
Right.
Yeah,
can't walk a mile.
actually, 50 yards is more than it used to be.
Yeah.
That's a great point there, Gene, because I mean, if you would have asked me that, I'd probably, if they were 50 yards back, I was, it's basically the same thing, but it's not.
Well,
I mean,
I don't know
it is,
what the
but-
GAM has done about it. I don't think ever anything, but that's what the USGA says near is. So if you're doing a USGA qualifier, you should know that.
Right. I didn't look at their local rule sheet, but do they prohibit practice or?
Nope.
No, they don't. Okay. All right, key decisions here in this rule.
On the first one.
Yep.
Caddy on the day of the stipulated round is allowed to go onto the golf course and onto the green and test the greens.
Yeah, so that,
that comes into effect.
Long
It's-
time
it's
ago.
all-
it's always been that way, and there's kind of this unwritten rule that caddies are shamed if they go out and do it, and they don't really like that. But there's no rule saying that they can't.
Nothing to
It's just strongly discouraged that they don't go out there.
He can go out and putt. He can putt them all. You are only in control of your caddy during your stipulated round. Before the round starts, you have no control over your caddy.
He's an outside agent.
Well, and even more, I mean, in stroke play where you cannot go on the course beforehand, there's a decision that says, but you can use either a player or a caddy that's already played the course that
Yep.
day.
Yep.
So I mean, if your purpose is not to have the knowledge, it's like they turn it right around and say,
Go get it.
exactly.
I think part of that is, if you look at the tour, for those 3 days of practice rounds, those caddies are out there mapping the greens.
We were told in the old days that we were not allowed to go anywhere near the course.
Well, you can't, but your caddy
I
can.
was a kid.
Oh, you were the caddy.
They were just trying to shame.
That was the old days.
It was, I think it's more just heavily discouraged. I mean, you could do it, but they also, they've got 156 players. If you're in the afternoon, when are you going to be able to get out in front? You're going to have to wake up, So there's, I guess you could, but they just strongly discourage it on tour. And they'll probably maybe tell you that you can't, but you
It's been a
can.
while.
Sure.
That last week.
They probably don't make a point of telling you that you can go, and there's not a rule prohibiting it. But
Frank's beer.
good question. All right. Rule 8, we're gonna go through it really quick. Yeah.
One question.
Yep.
Decision 7-2/5. I'm a little bit confused about casual flicking. Is that You know, on a course like Fieldstone, where the range, you know, a lot of
Right.
balls off the range are in the fairway.
Mhm.
Casual flicking, is that
Yeah,
practice?
I would say, if you got one hand on the club and you're just kind of whacking it to get it off, whereas if you were to take take a full swing and take a stance and you take a full swing, that would probably be practice. As opposed to just flicking, you just grab the 5-iron, you just trying to whack it over there to get it on the back on the driving range. I think that's the difference they're looking at there. And so if you were to put your bag down and take a stance and take a full swing, yeah, I mean, I would say that's kind of the difference between flicking and making a practice stroke.
So flicking doesn't have to be a bang.
It doesn't have to be a backhand or anything.
Yeah.
You hit it with one hand, both hands, whatever, as long as you didn't mean to address the ball and try and hit it a specific way.
Right.
It's like we were talking about cleaning the ball. This is one that'll be construed against you. So if you're gonna do it, make damn certain that it looks like you're just flicking the ball and not doing anything else. If it looks like you're doing something else, you're probably gonna incur a penalty.
Just pick the ball up and throw it.
Throw it. There you go. Throw your shoulder up.
Tell the caddy to move the shots.
There's a decision on that, 7-2/5 talks about.
Yeah, that's what
We just have to-
Call the rules
Yeah.
official and say, would you clean up these balls? please?"
No, but I think especially if you're purposely trying to hit some type of shot, it's going to be dangerous practice. So it could be you want to work on your punch shot because you're in the trees and you got to punch. If you practice your punch shot like an active punch shot, that would be practice.
Well, it'd be different if there were 2 balls laying there and you flick them away, or there's 20 balls laying there. It looks like somebody dumped a shag bag and you every one of them.
Right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I really want to get back on track, but we'll let's see.
You want to hold the bunch?
Yeah, let's hold it because we don't want to rush through anything, even though it's only a few slides. But we'll get to this next week.
What else are we doing next week?
Yep. So next week is going to be match play. So we're going to do
2 and 9.
9, 2, and 34.
Oh, yeah.
So
I like that.
yeah, we'll just talk about match play next week. So I think 34 there may be some things that aren't about match play. So we'll just focus on the match play portions. But yeah, so it should be fun next week. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions, and I'm sure we probably won't get through everything, but we'll try our best. Because we obviously have a few pretty important match play events that we do each year. All right, thanks for coming out. If you haven't signed the sheet, please make sure you sign it before you go, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you.
Good job, Kyle.
If it's 80 degrees and sunny, you know you